Are you ready to learn what it takes to be a successful attorney? You're listening to Corner Office with me, Elise Powers. I'm sitting down with some of the most successful attorneys so you can learn how they made it to the top of the legal industry. You'll hear their advice for how you can forge your unique path to success. Welcome to Corner Office with me, Elise Powers. This is a solo episode today where we're talking about how can you build strong professional relationships? Now, this is a hot topic in the workshops that we lead. So as just kind of a broad overview, I run a firm called Elise Consulting. We specialize in leading interactive professional development workshops at law firms all around the world. We focus on skills like communication, email etiquette, executive presence and professionalism, leadership and delegation, critical conversations, and relationship building. We often get brought in to talk about relationship building because firms are not seeing it happen organically. And this is particularly true in a hybrid work environment and in geographically dispersed firms. Relationships, they don't fall into your lap. A mentor does not just kind of pop out of thin air and you build trust with them and everything's great. It really requires initiative. It takes being proactive. And a lot of us don't feel comfortable being proactive in building these relationships at work because, number one, we're not sure that other people want to talk to us. In fact, when we ask junior associates, what is the number one reason you're not building relationships at your firm? The number one response is, I assume that more senior attorneys don't want to talk to me. That couldn't be farther from the truth. In fact, when we talk to partners at firms, I can't tell you how often I hear them say, I'm surprised that none of the first years have reached out to me since they started to ask to go to coffee, to take an interest in my practice area, to get to know me. It's a little bit strange. They don't seem curious about the work that I'm doing. So it's just a total breakdown in expectations and understanding and assumptions. So when we go through this solo episode, I want to share why I feel so passionate about networking and relationship building. I'm also going to be sharing some interesting data points that we've collected over the years. So I am so lucky to speak to thousands of attorneys every single year. And in doing so, my firm has collected over 20,000 data points on how attorneys feel about a variety of topics. I'm going to be sharing a lot of those data points with you. So I want to start with, why I care about this topic so much. I went to Indiana University, and my sophomore year of college, I got over 10 internship offers all through my professional relationships. It had nothing to do with the college career center. And I noticed my friends weren't having the same success. So I started my first company in college to teach relationship building to students. I would work with students one-on-one. I would lead workshops at all the frat and sorority houses. I actually self-published a book on the art of building relationships. And I think of that college business as almost like the first iteration of my current company, Elise Consulting. When I think about relationship building in the context of being an attorney at a firm, a lot of associates in particular will say, I just don't understand why this is such a priority for me right now. My job is to do the work, to hit my billable hour targets, to learn how to kind of support our clients. Yeah, all of that is true. And this is still critically important because you need people you can go to for advice and guidance on difficult workplace dynamics. You need people you can go to when you're dealing with a really difficult supervising attorney. You need someone to rely on when you need to ask questions on how to do the actual work and the supervising attorney you're working with is ghosting you. These relationships must be developed before you need them. That's the key to all of this is you can't start networking when you need your network. You have to invest and kind of anticipate that you will need them in the future. And think about this as just a long-term play, delayed gratification. Invest the time now to build these relationships early on so that when you're going through a big career decision, a difficult time, you have all of these relationships to rely on. When we ask our workshop participants, associates, if you think about having a mentor at work, do you have someone you can rely on, go to for guidance, who you trust within the firm? Only 40% of associates say that they do, which is why we're talking about this all the time, because we really need everyone to have at least a couple of people they can go to for advice. It's really essential for, I think, anyone's career satisfaction, for their success. So when I think about networking, the definition of networking in my mind is relationships built through regular and active communication over time for mutual benefit. Now, the key here is that it's built over time. It's not a one-off transaction. You chat with someone for 5 minutes, you move on, you go about your day. That was a transaction. You did not make any sort of meaningful connection that will be beneficial long-term. The second part of that definition is that it's for mutual benefit. It's two people who both see value in this relationship. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I would rather be doing anything else. I don't want to go out and mingle and go to happy hours and have coffee, informational interview coffee dates. You're not alone. In fact, there's research that came out of Harvard that found when people think about networking, they develop a sudden affinity for personal cleansing products like toothpaste and hand sanitizer. It makes us feel physically dirty. That's because we think of networking as using another person, as taking from them, and no one wants to be a user. No one wants to be slimy. So we're going to talk today about how can you build relationships in a way that doesn't feel gross. Okay, so I think one of the most important things coming out of this episode is to understand that your goal is not to find a mentor. Your goal is to build a personal board of directors, just like a publicly traded company has a board of directors where each person on the board is there for a specific reason. They bring value, insight, expertise. We all need a board of directors, a range of people who can be helpful in different situations, who can provide different opinions on what we should do. And the key here is that we're building these relationships before we need them so we can just tap them as things come up. Now, when we think about this from an internal perspective, our research has found that associates rate the breadth and depth and meaning of their relationships internally to be an average of 3.18 out of 5. That leaves a lot of room for improvement. When we ask them, what do you see as being the biggest value of having strong mentor relationships? This is an interesting one. We got a 3-way tie. 26% of people say it's receiving advice on navigating interpersonal dynamics. So I think of this as you have a partner who is rude, condescending. I don't know how to handle my workplace interactions with them, or I don't know how to address this. Another 26% said it's to shadow different experiences to get more exposure to future opportunities. So maybe it's sitting in on a meeting or really feeling like you're learning what it takes to get to that next level of your career. And then the other 26% said it's asking questions on how to do the actual work. Now, when we are working with first years in particular, asking questions about how to do the actual work skyrockets, and how many people select that as the biggest value they see, because obviously when you're starting out, you have a whole lot more questions on how to do the work. That becomes less important for those kind of mentor relationships broadly as you just get more reps under your belt, get more experience. The other responses are 21% say it's to get advice on career decisions, and the rest say, I don't see the value yet. Okay. So I want to define who should be on our board of directors. I have a list of, I'll call them categories of roles that I think most of us can really benefit from. As I'm going through these different roles, I want you to be thinking about who fills that role for me currently. Identify what your gaps are, who you need to meet, so that you can be really targeted in building relationships. And then we're going to talk about, okay, well, how do you meet these people? So for attorneys, here's who I think you need on your board of directors. You need a champion. This is someone who's advocating for you and your success behind closed doors. This is likely someone more senior who is in high-level meetings and can talk about the awesome work that you're doing, who can recommend you for different opportunities, who is your big fan. And sometimes you don't even know who this person is, but often you have some clues because they'll say, oh, I was talking about you with so-and-so other senior associate. I was mentioning all the work that you're doing, or there's this new opportunity at the firm to be on the associates committee. I nominated you. That's a sign they're your champion. A strategizer is someone you can go to for advice on workplace dynamics. This is someone who you have to have complete inherent trust with. This is who I would go to if I was dealing with a colleague who was really difficult to work with and I wasn't sure how to handle it. Maybe I am in a certain practice group and I want to switch practice groups. You need to really trust your strategizer because you're going to be talking about those really delicate interpersonal dynamics with them. An advisor is someone who can provide advice on career decisions. Maybe you're thinking about lateraling. You want to talk to a few people about what do I need to take into consideration, given what is my current state at the firm I'm at and what I'm hoping to achieve. Now, a rainmaker, this is someone actually more externally. I think of this as referral sources or clients who are super fans of yours, who are maybe connecting you to new business opportunities, who are giving you a pulse on the industry that you specialize in. A Sherpa, someone who has navigated similar personal life decisions who you can talk to about their experience. So for me, I have a 1.5-year-old and a newborn. I rely heavily on other female business owners who have kids to talk about, okay, what do you do when you work travel? Is it every time we go on a trip, we have to bring back gifts for our kids? I would be broke if I did that. I am sometimes in 4 cities a week. So I talked to these other women about how are you navigating being a parent, being a business owner, having a really demanding career, loving what you do, but also loving being a parent. So whatever your personal life situation is, you need other people who have walked in similar shoes to you. Allies. Now, allies are people who are your peers who are doing similar work to you, who you can go to for questions. Maybe it's questions you don't want to ask a supervising attorney. You can go to them to understand what are some of the best practices you've uncovered while doing this type of work, while being at this level of your career. So these are the people I would recommend to have on your board of directors. Now, they don't all have to be internal. I'd say a mix of internal, external. The more diverse, the better. Oftentimes when I have people in our workshops think about who fills each of their roles, it's one person filling all of those roles. That's not going to be as helpful as having, 6 or 7 people you can tap as things come up. You also just don't want to use the same person for everything or else they might get a little resentful. So you want this diversity of perspective. Okay, so the obvious question is, okay, I know who I need to meet. I know these gaps in my board of directors. How do I meet them? You know what? It's so simple. You reach out to people you want to meet. This requires being proactive, taking that initiative to send an email. What do you say in an email? Hi, so-and-so. I know you were a summer associate at the firm while you were at University of Michigan. I also went to U of M. And now that I'm transitioning to returning to the firm full-time as a first year, I'd love to hear what your experience was like when you went through the same thing. You were a summer, you returned full-time, now you're a third year. I want to get your insight on what was different coming back as a first year, what you wish you knew. What does your schedule look like for us to connect sometime in the coming weeks? Perhaps we can grab coffee or do a video call. So if I break down that email, what makes that email strong? So number one is it makes it clear why you're reaching out to them specifically. We have something in common. We both went to the same law school. Then you have a clear purpose for the email. This is what I hope to get out of our conversation. There's almost an agenda. People feel like this is going to be a good use of my time. I know what the topic is. And then the third part is you're making it an easy yes, a quick coffee, a video call, a phone call, 20 minutes. That's all it has to be. Now, our research has found that the number one reason junior associates don't reach out to more senior colleagues is they assume it's because the more senior professionals don't want to talk with them. I can understand this, honestly. All people do in law firms is talk about how busy they are. And everyone assumes every partner is so busy, and they are, right? But what I hear when I talk to partners is It's kind of weird. None of the summers or first years have reached out to introduce themselves, to ask about my practice area, to learn about my career, get my advice. You would think that they would care about what I have to say or want to get to know me. So this just is I think, a classic breakdown in communication, expectations, assumptions. I would say most senior attorneys are happy to provide advice. It makes me feel really good to know that others care what they have to say. And honestly, most people love to talk about themselves. So give them that opportunity by taking an interest in them. So you reach out via email. You're expressing an interest in learning about them. I also should mention that let's say you realize, okay, I need a strategizer. I need someone who I can go to for advice on workplace dynamics. You're not saying in your email, hey, I'm looking for someone I can go to, or will you be my mentor? That's like asking someone to marry you when you're still messaging on Hinge. Like, no, we build this over time. We take it slow. And the other part of it is you have to reach out to people, a lot of people, because it's a numbers game. Not everyone's going to reply to your email. And by the way, I would follow up if you haven't heard anything after a week. Check back in. Hey, I'm sure things are busy or not sure if this is the right time. Wanted to see if you have any availability for a quick chat in the coming weeks. Let me know if I should reach out at a later date. Not everyone's going to even reply to that, and that's okay. You need to put yourself out there. Again, it's kind of like dating. Put yourself out there, meet a lot of people, and then you're going to find people you have this organic rapport with, people you just click with, who over time, you really get to know them and you trust them. And then it's just natural you would go to them with questions or for advice. So it's not some formal relationship. Now, I know a lot of firms do have formal mentor programs, which are awesome. We actually do a lot of kind of workshops on how to leverage your mentor for the formal programs. What I will say is that in my experience, a mentor is only helpful if you click. If you just kind of get each other, you like each other, you understand each other, and that can't be forced. So yes, formal mentors are great. And I think some of the best mentors or people for your board of directors are ones that are cultivated informally, where it's just you have that organic rapport. When we ask associates, what holds you back from maximizing your mentor relationships? The number one response, 39% of respondents say, I don't trust them to keep our conversation private. This is important because if you don't trust them to keep your conversation private, you're not maximizing them because you're not talking about what's really going on. Whether it's a formal or informal mentor, I do think it's helpful to just have a transparent conversation. I'd like to talk with you about some difficult workplace dynamics I'm navigating right now. Can you keep this between us? I'd really appreciate it if you don't share this with anyone. We train partners all the time on confidentiality with these types of conversations. I haven't worked with a firm yet who has had a policy different than if someone comes to you in a mentor capacity and is talking about a difficult situation, the firm says, I want to keep this confidential unless you hear about harassment, someone's in danger, or the work that we're doing for clients is at risk of not being completed well. So really, I think there is a commitment by most people, especially if you're really direct, to keep things confidential. So okay, if we go back to you reached out to someone, you asked for a few minutes of their time. You want to prepare for those conversations so that they feel like it's a good use of their time. You're not kind of just willy-nilly winging it. You are looking at their firm bio. You're coming with targeted questions that show an interest and a curiosity about who they are, what they do, getting their advice. You have this really great conversation. And then the key is to follow up, to maintain the relationship. When I think about the stages of networking, you meet someone, you build trust through conversations, plural, and then you maintain it over time. Where people drop off is that maintain step. They have a great conversation and then they never talk to that person again. The best way to kind of keep that momentum going is to schedule your next meeting before the first one ends. So you're sitting with someone, you're having a great conversation. You say, this has been so helpful. I've taken a ton of notes here. I plan to buy this book you recommended or to do XYZ. Would it be okay if we look at the calendar and look, 3 months out and throw some time to reconnect? How does September 20th at 9 a.m. look for you? Everyone pulls out their phone. They say, that sounds great, because who has plans 3 months out? And you say, great, I'm going to send you the calendar invite. We can always reschedule as the date gets closer. What this does is it just makes it less awkward to reach back out to people. It allows you to have something on the calendar, and sure, it could need to get rescheduled, but it's a lot easier to reschedule than to send them an email out of the blue. Hey, do you have time to chat? I'd like to hear from you. Then you're kind of coming up with, well, what's my excuse to reach back out to them? So I recommend scheduling your next meeting before the current one ends. Research shows that the optimal cadence to maintain a professional relationship is to have a connection or a touch point about every 3 times a year. So every 4 months. Approximately every 4 months, you need an excuse to get on their radar. It could be as simple as sending them an article that you read that they would find interesting, updating them on the case that you were working on. How did things turn out? I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. I get a paper copy delivered to my house. I read it front to back every single day. And I have this rule for myself that I don't let myself go to sleep at night until I have cut out at least one article and put it in the mail for someone who I think would find it interesting. So as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, okay, who do I know who would, this would resonate with? I write a quick little handwritten note. Hey, I was reading this. It reminded me of our conversation. Or I know you're interested in sustainability efforts. Or I saw this article on Formula One. I know you have the big Austin race coming up. People love it. It's just a way to stay on people's radar, because what you don't want to happen is you meet someone great. You talk to them once or twice. 2 years pass. You're in an SOS moment. You need their advice. You want to get their opinion. They now work at a firm that you want to work at. You don't want to reach out to them after 2 years of silence. That's where the sliminess, the gross feelings about networking come from. You've got to stay in touch. Add that value, really know what's going on in each other's lives. And that's how you have that true relationship of two people who care about one another in a professional and sometimes even a personal capacity, so that it's not gross when you're asking them for something. Okay, we've covered a lot here. I just want to kind of close out with a summary of what maybe you take from here. Number one is you got to put yourself out there. You have to be proactive and invest in relationship building, and you need to do it before you need these relationships. It's never too late to start. This is especially important if you work in a geographically dispersed firm with 22 offices, if you are working hybrid, not everyone's coming into the office every day. These relationships just do not fall into your lap. Other key takeaway, people want to get to know you. They want to give advice. Senior attorneys want to be asked for their advice. They've got some egos, right? Like they want to talk about all the work that they've done, all the success that they've had, the advice that they would like to give. I think the key to winning over anyone is to let them do the talking. The more they talk about themselves, the more they find you interesting. Ask questions, be curious, and then maintain these relationships. You're not going to maintain a relationship with every single person you meet. But if you meet someone, you click, you trust them, you respect them, you think that there could be value long-term in staying in touch, that's who you invest in. And you stay in touch, you connect at least 3 times a year, find an excuse to get on their radar, update them on the work that you're doing. That is how you build really strong relationships. So happy networking to all of you. And would love an update on how you've applied some of these techniques. Thanks for listening to Corner Office with me, Elise Powers. Be sure to follow me on LinkedIn for weekly tips on how to accelerate your career. If you're loving this podcast, I would be so grateful if you'd click follow on your favorite listening platform. While you're there, give us a 5-star rating. If you're interested in having me speak at your organization, or if you have topics you'd like us to cover on the podcast, send me a note at info@eleviewconsulting.com. That's info@ELEVIEW All opinions expressed by Elise and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Eleview Consulting or any law firm. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as legal advice or the basis for legal decisions.